Hey everybody! So today we're going to show you how you could use the PD++ library in middleware like FMOD and WISE. So I'm going to start with FMOD right now. And I'm going to show you where I have an example. So under my GitHub, there's a basically PD Unreal, and these are really just examples because there's nothing other than just the library that is, because it's C++ with FMOD and WISE and Unreal. So they're all kind of in the same location. So there's this FMOD folder here, and you would just want to see the example rain generator. And this would be the code that you could start with in order to get the basic template for a plugin that would run in FMOD. So what you would do is, this is if you're on Windows. If you're on Mac, it's different because you're going to use Xcode, but we're going to use Visual Studio. So you just have to create a new project, and it's going to be a DLL, dynamically linked library. And then you would call it something. And then you'd want to make sure you save the location somewhere. I'm just going to save it to my desktop because I already have an example. Create new solution, solution name, that looks good. Hit create. All right, then it's going to link, it's going to take a second. It's going to have this, a couple of files that it defaults to when it creates a DLL. And generally speaking, you can just get rid of those. But there's a few things you would have to do. You could also just try leaving them. But what I did was I got rid of them. But basically, you want to make sure that your configuration is a DLL. That's all good. You're going to want to add some include directories. So anything that you might have concerning the library. So you want to make sure that you would include that. So for example, you could just use the Unreal examples that we did last time. So you could link the private and the public libraries, right? So that everything that you did with Unreal could also work in FMOD. So finish that. Oops, this one. We did public, private, or you could just link directly to the PD++ folder. Okay. Then if you are, let's see, there's maybe one more. Looks like that's all good. Precompiled headers. So if you're going to get rid of all the code that Windows gave you when you created this project, or Visual Studio gave you when you created this project, you're just going to basically select not using precompiled headers, and then you could just delete this. And it should be okay. Should be okay, because you're just trying to build a CPP file so that FMOD can read it right at runtime. And that's really all you're going to do. And then you're going to basically create a new file. Come on. Or you could add that CPP file from my GitHub, and you're going to create a new C++ file. And that will get you to a project that looks like, sort of like that. Let's open the one that I already have. Which should be not there, but here. There we go. So fine, save it. Okay, So a couple things when you look at this. One thing is that I did forget that on this you also have to link to the API. So this is the project that I used. So I'll show you this. You also have to link to the FMOD API, which is here. It's in your where you downloaded it under the Studio API core, and then includes, or INC. That's what they use for includes. So you gotta make sure you link to that because that's where this key file lives. So you have to have that. Then any other includes that you may need. On Windows, I had to have this thing here. Why is it covered up? It's covering up. There we go. So I had to have this, otherwise it didn't build. It is basically a this whole CRT secure thing. I don't want to get into what that is because I really don't remember what it was for, but you had to do this when you're running on Windows or building on Windows. Otherwise, just make sure you have the includes for the code that you're going to use. So assumingly you've tested this yourself, either in just alone on its own or in something like processing, or it was working in Unreal and you want to now use it in FMOD. So this is a lot of this is the boilerplate code, and so this is the way that functions are created in FMOD, and there's a very specific way that they are running their API here. So you kind of have to just follow it letter for letter, and everything will be fine. But there's some weird stuff, and I can't get into every detail of their API, but basically the plugin process is where all the audio goes, and where our set bool, get bool, set floats. So set bool, get bool are built in, and we're going to use those as a mute option, but it could do anything other than mute. And then your parameters are going to live in the set floats, which you're going to set those using this preprocessor FMOD DSP parameter desc describe, and these become your parameters. So you just basically follow this, and then you add to your enum here what the order of your parameters. Make sure you add the parameters to this array. Just like you see here, just add another comma and make sure you just put in the address to this here. And then here's the kicker, this thing here. This is like this monster enum, whatever the hell this is. It has to go in this order. So all of your function definitions are here, have to be in this order. Otherwise it's a 0. So just kind of, make sure the one thing that you just want to be aware of is if you don't have any input buffers, just make sure you have 0. So for example, we're creating a range generator on this example. We don't need anything under input. Otherwise it will generate an input buffer, and it will be doing that on top of your output buffer, and there's no reason to do that. So, and if you don't do it, if you need it and you don't have a 1, then you'll hear nothing. So I made that mistake. Make sure you have a 1 for your output buffer. Definitely need that. And then just follow this template based on their corresponding parameter or variable or whatever they were created up here. Yeah, and then this hex here for the plugin version, just put whatever you want. Otherwise, it kind of just is pretty self-explanatory, and this is straight from their documentation, so it should be pretty good, but it's a very strict ordering. This is how the system reads your plugin when it finally loads it into memory. Then with all of those plugin parameters, make sure you have the descriptions, and then you can set your ranges here. It's the range low to high, and then the default value. And then you're on to your descriptions of your class. So in this particular example, similar to the Unreal example, we're just going to create the class inside itself and not create a separate description file like an H file and then an implementation file. You could do that too. It's just, this is the example that they use, and I thought that it's more straightforward that way. So you can see the one thing that so let's say that you've created a class that does everything for you, and you just have to more or less run the audio playback or the perform method into the process method of your plugin. Just make sure that when you create an instance of it, that you have to put it on the heap. So it means you have to create a pointer, and you have to make sure that you create it with the new statement here. So inside your plugin create, you have to create it, and then you also have to make sure you delete it later. It did not work if I created it on the stack, so it would crash every time. So and that's not uncommon from what I've done before. It doesn't always do that. Just depends on how the API is allocating memory. Then these are my internal values that I'm using, just like I did on the processing example, just like I did on the Unreal example, and just like I will do on the Wise example when I show you that. Okay, so those are just the things to look at in the code, how I created a new instance of Rain. I delete that here under the plugin release. Okay, so create, release, all this is really straightforward. And just make sure you create a pointer to your class. Plugin process. Okay, so this is also kind of general boilerplate stuff here. The only thing you have to remember then is to run your play method or whatever it is, if it's play, perform. I think I put it into its own function. Yeah, I did play rain. I put it into its own function here. So I don't know why I did that. I think maybe it just made more sense. So anyway, this is where your audio is going to go. This is the output buffer. It's going to read it into the buffer. And then this is where you're going to set up your parameters down here. So FMOD always has these two. This is an enum, and then this is a standard call. So this is some sort of define that they're using to wrap it all into their API. So basically just call the functions that you've created up in your class. And it's always going to be this state object, because what it's doing is, this is really similar to how we do it with C# and Java, is that you basically take a pointer address and you just keep passing it around during the life of the program. And so what it does is it takes this pointer address here and just casts it into a current instance of the rain state, which is the name of the class that we created before. And then it basically acts as your rain class. So everything stays in memory during the whole life cycle, and you can just take that pointer from here. This is what this DSP state is for. All right, and then that enum before is what was used to that you can use in the switch, and I created the map function like I did in Unreal up here. It's the exact same function. Where did I put it? Just right here. I just defined it inline. So this is just like the same map function from processing that I did in Unreal, and nothing has changed there, just so that our values make sense. And then intensity corresponds to these three, and volume corresponds to these two. and then I set it, and we're good to go. So then basically you just, once you've got everything in line, try to build it, right? And it should create a DLL, and it's all of its other hosts. So let's see, it would then build it here for your platform. You could build it debug, or you could build it release. And this just needs to go, this DLL needs to go into the FMOD plugins folder. So you copy this and you're going to put it in here. So this is under your FMOD folder. So it should be under program files, FMOD Studio, plugins, and you copy it there. Then the next time you load FMOD, it should now show up as an instrument. And so this is my PD Rain instrument. So there's the, there it is. So there's our mute, here's our intensity. And here's our volume. And generally speaking, I've found volume and intensity kind of go hand in hand. So you could even just bind those together. And that's it. And so then you would use it like you would anything else in FMOD. But that's how I got it working in FMOD. It was pretty straightforward. Next, I'm going to show you how to use Wise. And that's a whole different ballgame. See you then.